One Harvard historian comparing the Paris attacks to the fall of Rome. Niall Ferguson says, like the Roman Empire in the early 5th century, Europe has now allowed its defenses to crumble and is vulnerable. The man himself is joining me, Niall. In your article, it starts off very cold. Some people it sounded cold. You said what happened in Paris on Friday was not unprecedented horror. The world stands with France. That's a hollow phrase. And that you're not going to applaud President Hollande for his pledge of pitiless vengeance, because you don't believe it. Why?
Well, we've heard all this before, haven't we, Charles? I mean, these incidents now happen at a frequency of once every 6 months or so. It already happened in France in January. The same things were said after Charlie Hebdo. And, of course, since then, Islamic State has gone from strength to strength, and the danger of terrorism in Europe has increased.
Does the fact that there's not really solid follow-up actually embolden ISIS and other terror groups?
It does, and what particularly emboldens them is fine words that are then followed by ineffective actions. When we say we're going to be pitiless, as Monsieur Hollande said after the attacks in Paris, and all we do is increase the airstrikes, which have now been going on for over a year and have not impacted ISIS's presence in Iraq and Syria, so our words sound hollow. And
so
they
blowing
can
up 116 fuel trucks just not going to be enough?
It's not.
What should they do? What should France do? What should America do? How do we prove to ISIS that we will be pitiless, that we will be, as we'll meet them on any level with respect to vengeance and the degree of cruelness needed to get the job done?
Well, I think you have to realize that this can't be done from their air. And it's very clear that when we pulled out of Iraq, we created a vacuum of power into which, in Syria and Iraq, Islamic State has come. I think we have to face the reality that only a significant input of special forces on the ground is going to defeat Islamic State. And I doubt very much that this president is going to authorize that. So we're going to see more airstrikes, and they will not fundamentally degrade Islamic State's capability.
There's an old saying that history repeats itself, and certainly your article comparing what's happening now, France/Europe, to the fall of the Roman Empire. Do these countries get so large that they become just sort of not necessarily indifferent, but they put it in neutral? I think the American economy has done that to a certain degree, and that's why the rest of the world is caught up. But is this an inevitable phase that countries must go through, no matter how great they are, because empires throughout the history of mankind have eventually fallen?
Well, there's a question really of timing here. I think the interesting thing about the European Union is that it faces three challenges. It obviously has not got the capability to deal with the security crisis in the Middle East on its own without American leadership. It has a problem of mass migration, people arriving at a rate of 200,000 a month across its much larger border than the US border. But it also has a fifth column within, the radical Islamists within European societies that are capable of carrying these attacks out. And right now, I just don't see Europe having the capability of solving these three challenges. And that's why I was reminded of the decline of Rome in the 5th century, the barbarian invasion, plus a kind of weakness within.
Yeah, but they had really kind of put it in neutral. They conquered the world. They were paying mercenaries to do what they used to do themselves, and they ended up being sacked. And your book, Kissinger, about Kissinger being a sort of an idealist, if you will. There's no way there's a diplomatic solution to something like this. Not at this stage of the game, is there?
Well, I think there is. I mean, the work I've been doing on Henry Kissinger's life has reminded me of how the Middle East used to be back in the 1970s, when it was really the United States that called the shots. One of Kissinger's achievements was to drive the Soviet Union, as the Russians then were, out of the Middle East and to make the United States the peace broker. Well, we really are seeing the disintegration of that achievement in our time. And my fear is that that disintegration has further to go. And until we have American leadership, there's no knowing quite where it will stop and where Islamic State will end up going.
I hate to say it, but I don't know we're going to get that American leadership you're seeking anytime soon. Niall Ferguson, you're one of my favorites. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles.
Really appreciate it.